Have you always wanted to be an Affliction Warlock, but maybe you find it a little bit too hard or complex with, managing your damage over time abilities and your soul shards? Then maybe this video is for you. I will show you how you can play Affliction Warlock very nice and, very good with the single button assistant. In this video here, I will go through the stats, the talents, the rotation, and the gameplay as well on how I would do this. So, let's get to it. So let's talk about the stats. First of all, what I always recommend, as you can see, I say in the top here, that I recommend intellect. What I mean by intellect is I always recommend having the highest upgrade level. So for example, here you can see my hands are currently veteran, even though I got another pair of hands who actually had mastery and critical strike, which is better secondary stats than this one here with crit and haste. I wouldn't take it if it's a less than veteran. Like I would only take the hands if it's either a veteran as well as this one here, or if it's a higher one like champion or heroic or myth. But I would never go down in upgrade level because you're going to lose so much intellect, which is your main stat, and intellect is really like important scaling overall. So always try to go with the highest upgrade level, which is super nice. But imagine you get into a situation where you get the same upgrade level as you already have, then that is when you want to look at the secondary stats. First of all, we have Mastery. Mastery basically increases all your damage you do as an Affliction Warlock. It increases the damage of Agony, it increases the damage of Corruption, Unstoppable Affliction, and Seed of Corruption. Just overall, it increases like the entire, all your damage over time abilities and so on. Like it's just a great stat for Affliction Warlocks. So especially when we're also using single button assistant, since we don't we just have to use the dots with the single button assistant and it will take care of rest. So having Mastery here is great. Secondly, we're going to have Critical Strike. Critical Strike, of course, increases the chance for all your spells to do double damage. But we also have some cool talents which actually helps with using Critical Strike. For example, we have this one here. Critical Strike from Agony, Corruption, and Unstoppable Affliction have a chance to grant Nightfall, which is great because, Nightfall is a nice talent up here, which we like. So that's just going to help make it proc even more. Also, we have this one here. Increase the Critical Strike damage dealt by Agony, Corruption, and Unstoppable Affliction by 15%. So that's why we like, basically why we like Critical Strike. Sorry, I was like confused for a second. So basically, Mastery and Critical Strike. Many guides I've seen is actually saying Mastery and Critical Strike is equal strong. So you should always try to, of course, get them together or just, it doesn't really matter if you get Mastery or Crit. Both of them is like super, super good for you. Then we have Haste. Haste is helping you for casting your spells faster. Basically, it just makes the entire rotation faster. It also reduces the global cooldown. When you use single button assistant here, as we do, it will give you a 25% longer global cooldown, but the more haste we have, it actually helps reducing the global cooldown. But not, of course, removing it totally. And we still get the punishment for using it. But also haste also increases, I'm pretty sure it also counts for Warlock, that when you normally you have your damage over time abilities, maybe let's say Agony is going to tick 20 times over its duration, but haste actually also helps it to tick more times over its duration as well. So haste is also just like super, super good. Lastly, we have Versatility. Versatility increases the flat-out damage you do. It decreases the damage you take. So you can see like all the damage and healing you do is increased by the amount of versatility you have. But also, it decreases the damage you take as well. It's a really great stat if you like want to just only do solo content, questing, delves, but only want to do like solo stuff because it makes you more tanky. But at the same time, if you want to really just put out more damage, like overall throughput damage, then we would recommend this up here. So when it comes to talents, we're going to do this one here quickly because the explanation between the two talents we have is actually quite simple. First of all, we're using Soul Harvester for both builds. So I have a dungeon build here and I have a raid build. We're using the build for Soul Harvester for both of them. I have looked at many different guides on what people are using. If they're using Soul Harvester or if they're using Hellcaller. Basically for raids, everyone is using Soul Harvester. But when it comes to dungeons, a lot of people is very splitted if they should be using Hellcaller or if they should be using Soul Harvester. Like if you go to Icy Veins, they recommend Hellcaller for dungeons. If you go to Wowhead, they recommend Soul Harvester. And then I looked at the top 5 Warlocks on WoW Mori, and they were all using Soul Harvester. So I was like, it's quite very hard to find out which one is meta because no one really agrees on this one here. So what I did is I just went with the recommendation for Wowhead because I felt also we're basically using the single button assistant, so I feel like it's nice that it's simple. So having a raid build and a dungeon build that uses Soul Harvester is nice because you don't have to get used to two different like hero trees at the same time. It just also makes the game so much more simple. So I went with Wowhead's recommendation, and we're gonna go with Soul Harvester for both the dungeon build and the raid build. So let me just go over quickly the difference between our dungeon build and the raid build. The dungeon build is very focused on dealing a lot of damage with Corruption and Seed of Corruption, because Seed of Corruption is one of your main AoE abilities. So you can see everything you have over here in the right side here is helping to increase the damage on Seed of Corruption, helps the damage of Corruption itself, but also this one here, Seed of Corruption, now embeds demons into seeds into 2 additional nerfy enemies at 50% effectiveness. So basically it's going to spread Seed of Corruption and explode on multiple targets, which is super cool. So everything here in this corner here is very, very for the dungeon build, because of course the dungeon builds and leveling, delves and so on, you need AoE damage. For the raid build then, we actually go here to the left side here. We focus more on using, actually, instead of using Drain Soul, which I know the dungeon build is using, we're using Shadow Bolt up here. But also we are increasing the damage a lot on Agony and Affliction, like Unstoppable Affliction. Because Unstoppable Affliction is more like a single target spell, and also like Agony, because Seed of Corruption is spreading Corruption, so it makes sense to increase the damage on Seed of Corruption and Corruption. But in the raid build, we're more focusing on the single target ability, which is of course Unstoppable Affliction and basically Agony and so on. But it's very focused on Unstoppable Affliction. And then we have over here again for the dungeon build, we have basically the Seed of Corruption and Corruption bonus. So you can see that's the main difference between these two builds. Very simple, very nice. It's basically we're using the same damage abilities in both specs, no difference there. The only difference really is on the left side here, where we have in the dungeon build, we for example have taken Curse of Tongue, and we have taken which one was it? Maybe we have removed. We have also removed Shadow Fury, because you don't really need those two in the raid build, because yeah, you're not going to stun the boss anyway, if you know what I mean. So we have just taken some survivability. At the same time, I've also tried to take all the survivability. We have, for example, in both specs, we have like healing or passively from Soul Leech. We of course have all the Soul Leech and leeches we can get up here. We also have everything that can make our drain life very better, and also healing your pet in both the builds. So this build here is like, super focused on self-healing, super focused on passive healing. Whenever you need health, you just use Drain Life, and it's going to do a lot of insane healing. So very, very nice. Both the raid build and dungeon build is very survivability full, if you know what I mean. We also have this one here, Dark Pact now shields you for an additionally 50% of the sacrificed health, which is of course nice. So when you actually use Dark Pact, it's going to give you even more. But overall, nice build. Not gonna explain too much about it anywhere, but I just wanted to give you the opinion on what's the difference between the dungeon build and raid build. Nothing you have to change on how you play the spec, but it's just the passive damage you're gonna deal for Seed of Corruption or Unstoppable Affliction is the main reason. Also with Midnight, we have getting the Apex talents down here in the bottom, just to explain what is happening here. Haunt now calls upon a demonic soul from within the Twisting Nether to haunt your target. The soul is unstoppable and ravenous, dealing 22k shadow damage to its host and 3 enemies within 10 yards, suffering from your corruption over its duration. So basically, Haunt now also summons this demon here that deals damage. Also, rank 2 is now increasing the initial damage by Haunt by 100% and increase all the damage dealt to the host by an additionally 4%. And then it has a really fun little bonus down here on rank 3. Damage dealt by a Haunt has a chance to release the demonic soul haunting its target. When released, it unleashes a devastating attack before being banished back to Nefrisa. When this happens, call down a meteor formed from the ruins of Nefrisa that explodes upon impact, dealing 28k shadow damage to all enemies within 10 yards. So this is actually pretty powerful, because now Haunt is also turned into a spell that is very important to use on AoE. Before, Haunt was more like just a single target spell, but now it actually also deals damage to everyone because of the top bonus and the bottom bonus here. Of course, we are also using the Soul Harvester in both the dungeon build and raid build. And what does the Soul Harvester actually do? Mainly what happens is a demonic entity now inhabits your soul, allowing you to detect if a soul shard has a succulent soul when it's generated. Consuming a succulent soul, unleashing your demonic soul, dealing 10,000 shadow damage to all enemies within 10 yards of the target. Damage reduced beyond a target. So basically now when you're using your souls, you have a chance to like explode on the target, dealing 10k damage to the target and everyone around it. Again, another reason for why passively damage increase for raid, but also for dungeons, because you have a chance for like it to explode all the time. We also have this one here. Your Dark Harvest spells is empowered by the demonic entity within you, causing it to grant one soul shard that each contains a succulent soul every 1 second while challenged. So it just gives you even more chances to like proc these souls that is going to explode, which is great. You're going to see when we go to the rotation now here in 2 seconds how it's going to look. But basically a big demon guy, whatever it is going to be behind you and makes the target explode. So when it comes to rotation with single button assistant, it's single target wise when it's boss fight is very simple. When it comes to multiple targets, it's a little more complicated because you have to do something that the rotation doesn't do. I hope Blizzard is going to fix the rotation. I don't think they will, but it is what it is. So basically, when it's a single target rotation, for example here, we have this training dummy here. I hope it kind of knows that it's single target. When we have the single target rotation here, it's quite simple. You use single button assistant 3 times. Basically, it's going to be casting Corruption, Agony, and what is it called again? Haunt. After that, you use your third spell here called Summon Dark Lair. Summon Dark Lair increases the damage of your damage over time abilities, and Summon Dark Lair is going to be increasing damage, like the damage it will deal itself is increased by as many like damage or times abilities you have on the target. So it can deal way more damage when you have like tons of damage or time abilities on the target. So that's very simple. Let me show you very quickly here. 1, 2, and 3. And now I use my Summon Dark Lair and I go back to spam again. Don't interrupt this channeling here. Then it's going to now be spamming like 5 to 10 unstoppable afflictions, depending on how many soul shards you have. It's going to spam and spam and spam. It's really, really great, just spamming tons of them. And now it's going to go back to Haunt again, so Affliction. Now it's going to be using Drain Soul because we have nothing else to do. But whenever you see the icon, even when you cast Drain Soul, you can see down here, when you have nothing else to do on the single button assistant, you don't want to interrupt Drain Soul. But when you can see your single button assistant has another icon down here, then you want to interrupt it. Like now, when you can see something better is ready. So now you can see it's using Drain Soul, but whenever it shows something better down here is ready, then you want to interrupt it with whatever is better. Now, for example, you can see Unstoppable Affliction. I really need you to understand that mechanic. When it uses the slow Drain Soul, it takes 4.5 seconds before that Drain Soul is done. You don't want to wait that one out. The moment the single button assistant shows another spell is ready, you use that spell and interrupt the Drain Soul, because the Drain Soul is just like a little filler spell that doesn't do much damage. Of course, sometimes it's going to glow extra and it's going to do a very quick Drain Soul. That is a nice one. That comes from the talent here called Nightfall, where you have a 50% faster Drain Soul, which is super nice. But when you have the very slow one, and you can see that the single button assistant switches away from Drain Soul to another spell, then you want to press single button assistant and interrupt the Drain Soul. The only spell you should not be interrupting ever is the one called Dark Harvest. That one, let it damage, that is a great spell. Like, let that one damage. But the Drain Soul is totally fine to interrupt. It's just a filler while you're waiting. It's just a filler, and interrupt it as long, just interrupt it whenever your damage over time whenever you have something better to use. That's totally fine. Nothing to worry about. So again, use single button assistant 3 times, put on Corruption, put on Agony, then it's going to use Haunt, and then you're going to use your Summon Dark Lair. That's the single button. So that's the single button rotation when it comes to single target. Now comes the more complicated one, which is for multiple targets. You have maybe been in a party group with someone who played Affliction, or you maybe have played Affliction yourself and you did really bad damage in dungeons because the single button rotation doesn't work for multiple targets. So how Affliction actually is going to do a lot of damage is by using as many Seed of Corruption as possible when you have whenever like there's more than 2 or 3 mobs, you just want to spam Seed of Corruption. Of course, you need to have some damage over time abilities on the targets so they actually trigger the Seed of Corruption, because you need to have something that damages to make it, basically Seed of Corruption is throwing a spell on the target, and then after it has received a couple of damage, like it needs a damage over time ability on, whenever it has received enough damage, it explodes and gives corruption to all the targets. Now, of course, next time I cast Seed of Corruption, it's going to explode way faster because it already has dots on. Great. The problem is, and I really hope Blizzard sees this, the problem is the moment you have corruption at the target, it will never suggest using Seed of Corruption, because Blizzard's single button assistant thinks that corruption and Seed of Corruption is the same spell. It never is going to be using Seed of Corruption again on the target. That's really bad, because for the best single button rotation, against multiple, with the best Affliction Warlock, sorry, that's the right word. The best Affliction Warlock rotation against multiple target is having Agony and Corruption on the target, basically having the damage over time abilities on, and then you just want to spam as many Seed of Corruption. So basically how it would look like is you want to have, for example, let's say all these 5 mobs were just pulled. The one in the middle here now has Agony and has Corruption. Now you basically just want to spam Seed of Corruption on it, because it's going to make it explode and deal tons of damage to all of them. Like you can see here, Seed of Corruption is going to deal so much damage. The only time really, so whenever you don't have any Seed of Corruption, of course, then you can just like use your single button assistant. And it uses this spell here called Dark Harvest, which is a very important spell also to use. Consume the life force of each target affected by your damage over time abilities, dealing 50k damage over 2.5 seconds. The cool thing is Seed of Corruption is actually spreading corruption to all of them. So when you actually use Dark Harvest, which is this one here, it will actually deal damage to all of them. So again, try get on. One of the targets needs to have an Agony on, needs to have a Corruption on, and then spam Seed of Corruption as much as possible. And it's just going to explode on all of them. It's going to be like doing so much damage. Like you're going to see your damage meter so much more. So if you have played Affliction Warlock now with the single button assistant, you have been doing it wrong. I'm sorry, because it is not using Seed of Corruption for you. You need to put it down here yourself. And whenever you have Nightfall, it also makes you a Seed of Corruption instantly, which you're getting from your talents as well, like this one here. So now you can see every time Nightfall is proccing, you can actually cast Seed of Corruption while moving, which is insane. You technically only need to have Corruption or Agony at the target, and then it will explode. But you can see here, I could just jump around, wait for my Nightfall proc to come, and then I can just use it, which is insane. So again, whenever you have soul shards on, use them on Seed of Corruption, but you need to have a damage over ability at time. You need to have a damage over time ability on the target before you can do it. That is very important, or else it's not going to explode. So first, put on a Corruption, Agony, something like that. Boom, Corruption, Agony. Spam as many Seed of Corruption you can. When you don't have any more power for Seed of Corruption, then you want to spam single button assistant until you have Seed of Corruption again. But the single button assistant is going to try and make you use a lot of unstoppable afflictions. Don't do that when you have a lot of mobs here, because Seed of Corruption also costs soul shards. So you don't want to do what the single button assistant want. Never use unstoppable affliction when you have 5 mobs. You actually want to spend that on Seed of Corruption instead. So very, very importantly. So look at this, like it just explodes like insane. I really like this, I feel like this is so fun. And it doesn't make it much complicated. I mean, you have literally 3 buttons. I mean, that's manageable. By the way, when you have cast the Seed of Corruption and you have all these Seed of Corruption active at the target, you also want to be using Summon Dark Glare, because it's going to be increasing the damage of all the damage or time abilities you have on them. And also the Dark Glare is going to be dealing a lot of more damage, because you have all these damage or time abilities on the target, which of course is great. So you can see, it's nice. And the beam it shoots looks like it even like it's... I actually didn't know it did that. But it looks like the beam it's shooting is actually like jumping between all the corrupted targets, which is pretty nice. So again, get on 1 or 2 damage over time abilities on one of the mobs in the group. Spam as many Seed of Corruption as you can. And the cool thing is when we actually spam Seed of Corruption, we don't get punished by the single button assistant delay. Does that make sense? Because when you use the single button assistant, it will actually make all the cast between each spell 25% longer, you know, with the global cooldown. But when we spam, so again, you know, here it's going to, funny enough, it's going to suggest using Seed of Corruption here because it doesn't have Agony on. So yeah, I'm like, why not? I put on my Agony. Both now I have Corruption and Agony on. Then I'm going to be just spamming Seed of Corruption. And now when it does that, we're not going to get punished by using the single button system. It is first going to get that delay when we actually go back to using the single button system, which is nice. So yeah, I like this rotation. I think it's quite fun. Of course, I know it could be a little bit more complicated with using Seed of Corruption again manually, but again, it also makes us cast it faster since it's not using the single button system. I know this rotation could be a little bit complicated, but else, I mean, keep watching to repeat it again. Watch what I just showed you, and when you have mastered that, you're going to be dealing a lot of damage. And for all the Affliction Warlocks out there who doesn't use this rotation here with the Seed of Corruption for itself, yeah, they're not going to do much damage. But yeah, at least this is helping. So yeah, let's try and do some real gameplay and see how that looks like. Oh, before we go to the gameplay, I actually forgot to tell about what the other spells does. I know a lot of new players to the game, they enjoy when I talk about the other spells we have. So basically, whenever you need health, you have 2 ways of getting self-healed. You have the spell here called Drain Life, which is healing you for insane amount of HP. Like, you can just see how much HP you get healed for. And it heals like the double to your pet. Like, your pet is never going to die when you use it. It's so cool. So, and then you have the other healing method, which is your health stone. You have a spell called Create Health Stone. It creates a health stone that it will instantly heal you 24%, which is great. And we have this talent here, which basically does so we can actually use it multiple times in combat. Or else normally you can only use it 1 time. Then you have Soulburn. Soulburn is basically a spell that it does a lot of bonus things, like, you know, increases your movement speed after using Demonic Circle Teleport, makes so we can actually use our teleport here, the Portal instant cast, also makes your Drain Life gain an absorption equal to the amount of healing done by, yeah, basically gives you like shield for also the healing. So when you actually heal with Drain Soul, it also gives you a shield when you actually heal, but now we don't heal, we are just, yeah. See if we have max HP. Also, Health Stone, they increase the healing of your Health Stone by 20 and increase your maximum heal by. So when you actually do the Health Stone, it's actually going to heal for even more. So it's like a little fun spell that you can use like whenever you feel like. Some people also macro them into your other spells, but yeah. Then we have the Demon ability here. This is the Command Demon ability, so it uses whatever ability your demon can use. In this case, I like this one here because it actually uses... when you have the Fell Hunter on, it interrupts the spell. So if the mob here was casting a spell I don't want it to cast, I can use my number 6, and it will interrupt the cast of the mob, which is pretty nice. Then I have my Curse of Weakness here, and my Curse of Tongue. Curse of Weakness makes the targets... what is it called? When between attacks of the attacks they do, the time is increased by 20. So they are slower now attacking, which is of course helping your tank. We also have this talent here in the dungeon build, so when you actually use a curse like either Curse of Weakness or Curse of Tongue, it curses everyone in 10 yards, so it actually curses all of them. So you don't have to like click on each of them and curse them. No, you just click one of them and it curses them all, which would make curse so much more worth it. We don't use it in the raid build though, because you're fighting a boss. Curse of Tongue is also cursing them all, but you can only have one active at the same time, and it makes them cast spells 10% longer. Then of course we have your Health Stone. We have Dark Pact. It sacrifices 20% of your HP, but it shields you for 200% of it. And plus an additionally 4,000 for 20. Yeah, so basically boom, removes 20% of your HP, but gives you an enormous shield. Yeah, very big shield, almost 200k. Yeah, like it's an insane shield. Then we have an Ending Resolve. It makes you reduce all damage you take by 40%, and also granting immunity for interrupt, silent, and pushback effects. Then we have Fell Domination. In case your pet dies, then you can use Fell Domination and summon your pet very, very fast back. We also have Mortal Coil. Mortal Coil is actually also a healing spell, but it's also a spell a lot of people use for interrupting. Imagine that this mob, you just used now spell lock on it, so now you cannot interrupt your, this target anymore. Now it uses another spell, then I can actually use Mortal Coil, because it will make them, you know, it will make them fear. It will make them like run around in circles for, I think it's like 3 seconds, but it also heals you for 12.5 of your maximum health. Before it said 25, I guess I had some kind of like effect on or something like that. Probably from my Dark Pact or Ending Resolve. That's probably a talent. Then we also have Shadow Fury, where you can stun all the targets. So imagine they all were casting a spell at the same time, then you can interrupt them all. And then we also have your Fear. In case you don't have your spell lock, you have your Mortal Coil or Shadow Fury, you can actually also fear the target, which will make them run in circles for like, I think it's like 6 seconds, which is quite insane. Then we also have Burning Rush. In case you need to really run fast away from mechanics or something like that, you can use this one here, but it will keep eating your health. You can see my health, I keep losing 10,000 HP. I think maybe Drain Life is actually able to keep you up with it on, but I mean, there's no reason for it, because you only want to use it when you need to get away and then fast put it off again. Then we have Demonic Circle. It makes a portal here, and then you can always use Demonic Teleport, and you get back to that. Pretty nice. You also have your Demonic Gateway. You can set up a portal. Imagine you had like a boss where sometimes you need to jump between 2 places. Then it's very nice with this portal. You click on it, and it makes you go here. But now I cannot use it for 1.5 minutes, so yeah. Then of course we have Create Hellstone. When you use it inside a group, like actually you also have this spell here called Create Soul Well. Create Soul Well is making this one here so everyone can get a Hellstone, where Create Hellstone is only making one for you. So, yeah, you can make one for your party or make one for you. You also have Soulstone, which is a spell, if you cast it on yourself and you die, then now, next time you die, for the next 15 minutes, you can resurrect yourself. You could, like a shaman with Ankh, you could just resurrect yourself, which is pretty cool. But you can also don't use it, and if one of your party members die randomly, like if someone died against a boss, you can actually use it on them while they're dead and bring them back. So you don't have to use it on someone before they die. You can actually also wait till someone dies and then combat rest them, which is super cool. Then of course you have your pets, but when you use single button assistant, it's a little bit weird, because sometimes it's going to force you either to use Fell Hunter or Imp. So it might sometimes, like if you want to use Void Walk in a dungeon, it might force you back to using a Fell Hunter or something like that. I prefer Fell Hunter for dungeons since it has interrupt, and I prefer Imp for raids since, yeah, it's just simpler and it has that clean spell as well. So yeah, dungeon time. So now, as I mentioned before, now we have a lot of mobs in the dungeon case. I just need to cast a few curses on one of the mobs and then spam Seed of Corruption on them. Let's make it a little bit more fun. Let's pull a little bit more mobs here. Pull them up there. Pull them up there. Now the tank is going to pull all of them. So I need to find a target that I have. There we go. Now this target here has 2 curses on. And now I'm just going to be spamming single button assistant. And now you will be seeing the damage meter down here that I will very fast climb all the way up. Use my Summon Dark Lair. And now, you know, boom, boom, boom. But just spam. Spam my Seed of Corruption as much as I can. And it should basically keep, like, giving you soul shards. And whenever you don't have soul shards to spam it, use your single button assistant. Use it in Harvest. And then back to spam again. Oh, I didn't have my pet on attack. But look at that. Look, see the damage there. I just need one target that has, like, a corruption on it, like a damage over time ability. And then after that, I could just spam Seed of Corruption. And it's going to deal so much damage. It is fun. And of course, on a boss fight, you have to use that single button, like this single target rotation. But you can see there, like, look at that. Seed of Corruption is doing so much damage, and also my Dark Lair is also doing a lot of damage. So again, get one mob in the group that the tank has pulled, get one curse on it. You literally just need 1 or 2 damage over time abilities on it, and then just spam Seed of Corruption. And you're gonna get so many free soul shards that you can just keep using. It is crazy. And let me show you one more time. And again, why you see a lot of people dealing no damage with this is because they maybe use single button assistant, and it's not going to deal too much damage to them. So now we have this target there with Seed of, like, a curse on, and now we're just going to be spamming single button, like Seed of Corruption, not single button resistant, but just this Seed of Corruption. Just spam it, spam it, spam it, and now we don't have more soul shards. Now we're going to be using our normal rotation. And now I want to use Unstoppable Affliction. We don't want that. We want to use Seed of Corruption over Unstoppable Affliction. And again, top damage. I know it's a follow mode, and a lot of people is like, it's just a follow mode. But you know, still, it's still legit scenario. Personally, I feel. I don't know why it shows like, you know, everyone is a warlock. That's kind of weird. There we go. But yeah, I mean, that is the hard part. On a boss fight, it's easy. Here we have another example. Again, using my Summon Dark Lair, since we have all the damage over time abilities on. And now we're going to just be spamming Seed of Corruption on the main target. That already has 2 of my debuffs on. And we're going to be doing so much damage now. Now we don't have any more soul shards. I'm just going to be using my single button rotation. It's going to be using the harvest now. And now we've got a lot of like single soul shards we can use again. So whenever you run out of soul shards, it's going to use the rotation with the single button, which is going to use Dark Harvest. And after that, after the Dark Harvest, then you're going to have so many soul shards again. So you're basically ready to spam Seed of Corruption again. And here you can see Seed of Corruption, Dark Glare, and then we have Demonic Soul that also deals a lot of damage, which is why I feel like Soul Harvest is actually quite good when it comes to multiple target, because it keeps exploding. Why I know right now a lot of people are discussing if that one is best or a Hellcaller. Now when it comes to single target, it's going to be like we talked about it, the rotation. If the tank actually would start, well, let's just go. So we're going to use single button 2 times, 3 times, then now use Summon Dark Lair. Of course, it's not ready, but normally you would use your 3 spells first that it recommends, and then you're going to be using your Summon Dark Lair. So Agony, Agony, your Corruption, and then you're going to use your Summon Dark Lair. I, of course, didn't have my Summon Dark Lair ready, so now I'm going to do trash damage since that is like our main damage. But yeah, I should have waited, but it is what it is. So now we're going to be waiting. There we go. We're going to be spamming 1, interrupting someone. There we go. We might be able to get a Summon Dark Lair in 2 seconds. Come on, there we go. Better spells used now. Get away. And now we have tons of damage over time abilities on. So now it's a great time to use our Dark Lair. And now we're going to be spamming 1 with it. Spam 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And we're getting all the way back on the damage meter now because we had actually had our cooldown, which is nice. And when it doesn't show anything else on your Drain Soul icon, you don't want to interrupt it. When it actually shows another icon, you want to interrupt it. Like now, it doesn't show anything else. Now it shows. There we go. I mean, it wasn't the best since we didn't have Summon Dark Lair at the start. But it was still pretty okay. But it definitely is a spec that deals so much damage on AoE. But still, like, pretty solid. Pretty solid. So yeah, that's basically it. And again, of course, when you're doing raids, then you're going to have this spec over here where you're not going to be using Seed of Corruption because you want to just, like, in raid fights with single button system, you don't need the Seed of Corruption here, like, really, that's not needed. It's just when it's dungeon and you need to do a lot of damage on mobs. So raid, it's basically single button assistant, use it 3 times, then summon Dark Lair, spam it again. When it's dungeons, you want to be putting 1 or 2 curses like damage or time abilities on one of the mobs in the group, and then you're going to be spamming Seed of Corruption. When you don't have more soul shards, you're going to spam Seed of single button until you have soul shards again. Never use Unstoppable Afflictions when you have a big group of mobs, because the single button assistant is going to try and make you do that. So thank you so much for watching. I know this guide here was a little bit more complicated than the others because we had to think about things that the single button didn't do. But I mean, that's why I make these videos, to make sure that we find builds that is valid, that actually works with a single button assistant, and how we can actually do most damage with single button assistant. Because imagine all the people who use single button assistant and they didn't know that it actually doesn't do a good AoE damage. Now you know how to do a lot of damage in dungeons. So yeah. I hope you enjoyed the video. In case you want to support me, you don't feel free to subscribe to the video so you always get maybe a notification when I make new guides. Remember, I also have all my talents, my macros, my anything I make for my guides on my Discord server, so you're welcome to join there as well. And in case you want to support the channel even further, you're welcome to become a YouTube member, and your name is also going to be in the end of the video. So Thanks for watching, and I guess I'll see you in the next video. Oh, and if you want to watch me live stream and actually play and, have a chat with me, then you can catch me on Twitch every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday at 9 p.m. CET, which I think is 3 p.m. EST. So yeah, in case you want to have a chat with me on live stream. So thanks for watching, have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next guide. Peace out.